Hello everyone! Today we're going to be doing a tutorial for these super cute face pads. This is the Jasmine stitch, which I've had loads of questions about. It is essentially a puff stitch and it creates a really nice texture for this kind of project. These face pads are best off made with 100% cotton. This yarn is from Paintbox and the colour I'm using is called Dusty Rose. I'm using a 4mm crochet hook. Starting off, let's make a slip knot, and then we're going to begin by chaining up 2 stitches. So that's 1 and 2, and then the second stitch you need to pull up the yarn. I would suggest about the width of your thumb. This is going to form the foundation for the puff stitch that we will be using to create the jasmine flowers. We now need to create a total of 8 loops around your hook. So yarn over, and that counts as the second. Then insert your hook into the very first chain stitch that we made and pull the yarn through, and that will count as 3 loops, which you can see on the hook. Yarn over again and grab through another loop. That's 2 more, so you've now got 5. And then yarn over and pull through another loop, which will give you a total of 7. For the 8th loop, you're going to yarn over, and you're going to need to grab this last stitch with your finger and thumb and hold on to it. This is because as you're going to pull the yarn through to close off all the loops, you want to be sure that you've secured that end stitch so that you can go back in, and then you'll need to pull through the yarn and create 1 chain stitch to close. That's the first puff stitch completed. Now chain 1 and pull up your yarn to begin the second. We're going to repeat the same steps, so yarn over and pull through for 3 loops, yarn over 4, pull through 5, yarn over 6, pull through 7, and then yarn over for the 8th stitch. Now instead of closing these stitches off, we're going to insert the hook into the very first chain stitch and pull up another 8 loops. So that's 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, and yarn over for 8. Remember to grab onto the last 8th stitch. You should have a total of 16 loops on your hook if you wanted to count them quickly, just to make sure that you've been doing everything correctly. Go ahead and pull through all 16 of the loops, remembering to hold on to the end so that you can slip your hook back through, and you can close off all of your stitches by pulling through and chaining 1 to close all of the stitches together. To start the next stitch, chain up 1 and pull up the yarn. We are going to repeat the same process, so chain up your 8 loops. I've now got 3 on my hook, yarn over 4, pull through 5, yarn over 6, pull through 7, and yarn over for 8, and then we're going back again into the very first chain space with a further 8 loops. Grab onto the 8th loop and close off all of your stitches, gently wiggling the hook so that you don't catch anything. Pull the yarn through and chain up 1 to close them together. You can now see this is what it's starting to look like. We've done 3 stitches and essentially created 3 petals for our jasmine flower. It needs 6 petals in total, so we need to repeat the process to create 3 more petals. So chain 1 and pull up your yarn. Use the tension to adjust the size and pull through 8 loops. Once you've got your 8 loops, go back into the very first chain stitch and do another 8 so that you have 16 loops on your hook. Go ahead and pull the yarn through all of those stitches to close them together, and then poke your hook through the 8th stitch, pull the yarn through and chain 1 to close them. You can see that we've now got 4 petals. The very central point is the first chain stitch that we made. Pull up your yarn and create 8 more loops, and then you're going to go back into the very central first chain space and create 8 more and close them together. This will be the 5th petal of the jasmine flower. Repeat these steps one last time to create the final petal of the flower. So chain 1 and pull up the yarn. That's 1 loop, yarn over for 2, pull through 3, yarn over 4, pull through 5, yarn over 6, pull through 7 and yarn over for 8. Repeat the same into the central stitch. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, yarn over for 8. Because we've now reached a point where we have just created the 6th and final petal, we are not going to close these last 2 stitches together. Instead, you're going to insert your hook at the start of the very first petal, where there's a chain space, and chain up 8 more loops. Pull through loop number 1, yarn over 2, pull through 3, yarn over 4, pull through 5, yarn over 6, pull through 7 and yarn over for 8. You should now have a total of 24 stitches, including the last yarn over, if you wanted to count them all on your hook. Pull through gently all of these stitches, gently wiggle your hook and go through to close them all off together and chain up 1. This has completed your first round, and if you open it out it should look like this. You've got a beautiful 6-petaled flower right in the center of your work. That has completed round 1. Moving on to round number 2, we're going to carry on in much the same way as we've been working before. So chain 1 and pull up the yarn, chain up 8 loops. From here you're going to move 1 step left to the center of the very next flower and chain up 8 more loops. Close up those 2 stitches together, pull through and chain 1, you can see the flower in the middle has got 6 petals. Directly above it, the flower that we're working on, we've only got 4 petals. So we're going to continue working on the same flower until we've completed the 6th petal. Chain 1 and pull up the yarn, then carry on making your loops. So we're doing 8 loops and then proceeding 1 step to the left and 8 loops in the center of the flower that we are working on. Close the stitches together. We've just completed the 5th petal, so we need to repeat one more time for the 6th. So chain 1 and pull up your yarn, create 8 loops, move one step to the left and pull up 8 loops from the center of the flower. This is going to create the last petal. As this is the last 6th petal from the flower, we're not going to close off those 2 stitches together, but we will be moving along and pulling up a further 8 loops on the next point to the left, so a total of 24 stitches. Pull through and close these 24 stitches together and chain 1. You can now see that we've got 2 flowers which have both got 6 petals each. So we're going to move along to the next flower, which is currently facing 12 o'clock. Chain 1 and pull up the yarn, create 8 loops, and then move over to the center of the next flower and draw up 8 loops until you've completed another petal. That is the 5th petal, so we can go ahead and close these 16 stitches off, chain 1 and pull up the yarn, and we're going to complete the very last petal for this flower. So create 8 loops, move over to the center of the flower and draw up a further 8 loops to complete the final 6th petal. As that flower is now complete, we're not going to close off these stitches, we're going to move along to the next and draw up 8 loops so that we can move along to the next flower. Close off these 24 stitches together, draw the yarn through and chain 1, we're now moving along to this flower here, chain up 1 to begin the next stitch and draw 8 loops. Try not to split everything as I just did. Move over to the central point of the next flower and draw up 8 loops to create the next petal. That is the 5th petal, so we can go ahead and close these 2 stitches off. Chain 1, draw up the yarn, pull through 8 loops, this is going to be the final petal for this flower, so go and draw 8 loops from the center point of the flower. As that was the last petal, move over to the left and draw up 8 loops, giving you 24 in total. Pull through and close all of these stitches together. We are moving on to the next flower here, which has got 4 petals. So begin by chaining 1 and pulling up the yarn, drawing through 8 loops, Move over to the center of the next flower and draw up your next 8 loops to create the 5th petal. Go ahead and close these 2 stitches together and chain 1. Chain 1 to draw up the yarn and create 8 loops. Then you're going to move over and create the final petal for this flower, so pull up 8 loops from the central point. Because that's the last petal, you got it. We're not going to close these stitches, we're going to move over to the left and draw up 8 loops from the center of the next flower. Once you have your 24 stitches, go ahead and close them all off, joining them together. This pattern can make you a little bit dizzy. We have 1 flower in the middle and we've currently got 4 around the outside. When it's finished, you will have 1 in the center and 6 jasmine flowers forming a circle around it. So that should help you to know when you get back to the beginning and you've completed round 2. We're going to carry on and complete the next flower, so I've just drawn up my 8 loops, move over to the center of the flower and draw up 8 loops. That is the 5th petal, so go ahead and close those 2 stitches together. Chain 1 and pull up your yarn. We're going to chain 8 more loops, and this should be forming the final 6th petal. Draw up 8 loops from the center point of the flower. As it is now complete with 6 petals, we're going to move over to the next flower and draw up 8 loops from the center over there. Close off these 24 loops together. We are now down to the very last flower, which has got 5 petals, so we are on the final stitch of round 2. Chain 1 and pull up the yarn, draw up 8 loops, draw up 8 loops from the center of the flower, creating the final 6th petal of the 6th flower. As we are now at the very end of round 2, we're going to close everything off, move over to the left and draw up 8 loops right at the start where we began. Pull through and close off these 24 stitches together, and you have now completed round 2. If you want to carry on and do round 3 or 4, you can go round as many times as you wish. This is quite a nice size for a face pad, so I'm going to stop here, but feel free to carry on until it's as large as you like. You may wish to use a stitch marker so that you know where you started from, as you can get a little bit lost. As I said, the way to know that you finished round 2 is when you have got 6 flowers surrounding the one central flower. You can leave it exactly as it is, it looks really cute. I'm going to go ahead and just add a row of single crochet all around the edge to create a border, and I'm also going to add a little strap to hold it onto your hand when you're washing your face, makes it a little bit easier to hold. So if you want to see how I did that, then keep watching. Here I am basically just putting 3 single crochets into each of the puff stitches, and then 1 single crochet into the chain spaces. However, if your puff stitches are larger than mine, you could add more single crochets. If they're smaller, you can add less. It doesn't really matter, just kind of put as many as you feel fit in there and try to keep it neat and uniform all the way around. To create my strap, I'm going to stop with the border stitch and just create a long chain. I believe I did 20 stitches. If your scrubby is going to be a little bit larger, then you might need to chain up more, but chain as many as you think you need to reach across to the other side. And then once I had created 20 chains, I stopped and slip stitched all the way back down again. Once you have slip stitched all the way back down into the very first chain stitch for your strap, then simply carry on with your single crochet to complete the border. Remember to keep an eye out when you reach the point which is directly opposite where you started your strap, so that you can attach it in the other end and that it's going nice and straight across the middle of the pad. So when you're single crocheting, just simply single crochet through the very end stitch on the strap, and that will anchor it into place. When you reach the end, snip off your yarn and simply pull it through, and you've completed your face pad. You'll need to grab a darning needle and just sew in those loose ends, and there you have it. I really hope you've enjoyed the tutorial. Congratulations if you've made it all the way to the end. Please let me know if you liked the video, and if you'd like to see more tutorials from me, please click the subscribe button. If you post anything on Instagram, do please tag me IA Knitwear so I can see what you've all been up to.